Now, the once combative yet cool former First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, was uncharacteristically emotional today about her role during the coronavirus pandemic. There were tears in her eyes as she told the COVID inquiry that it was simply not the case that she used those horrendous days and weeks to make political capital. The enormity of the decision had clearly got to her. She said that part of her wished she hadn't been First Minister when the pandemic struck.
Nicola Sturgeon used to be the most trusted political leader in Britain.
Will we get the full truth from you today, Nicola Sturgeon?
She's no longer leader, and now she's accused of covering up key decisions made during the pandemic.
The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. And nothing but the truth.
Under oath today, she told the inquiry it was not that she had deleted all her WhatsApp messages. Rather, in line with policy, they simply weren't retained.
Deletion, I think, forgive me, I think sounds as if it was a sort of, not bothering to check whether any information was being retained. I was very thorough, and not just in the pandemic, but in all my work in government, to ensure that things were appropriately recorded.
Did you delete them?
Yes.
Nicola Sturgeon says she didn't need to keep WhatsApp messages because she didn't use it for government decisions. Then the inquiry was shown this. I'm having a bit of a crisis of decision-making in hospitality, not helped by the fact I haven't slept, she messaged her chief of staff. They were discussing what time businesses should close. My instinct is 6 p.m, was the reply. That decision was announced in Parliament later that day. The inquiry had already seen WhatsApp messages where she called then UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson an expletive clown. Today she was much more sombre in her reflections.
It was suggested by a number of witnesses that the then Prime Minister, Mr Johnson, was the wrong Prime Minister for this crisis. Did you share that view?
Yes. I don't think I'm betraying any secrets here when I thought Boris Johnson was the wrong person to be Prime Minister. Full stop. So I think that answer has to be seen within that context.
Did you consider yourself, against that background and your considerable ministerial experience, to be precisely the right First Minister for the job?
No, that's not how I would have thought of it at all. I was the First Minister when the pandemic struck. There's a large part of me wishes that I hadn't been, but I was, and I wanted to be the best First Minister I could be during that period. It's for others to judge the extent to which I succeeded.
Thank you.
Nicola Sturgeon was used to praise of her leadership style during the pandemic. Ultimately, Scotland's COVID deaths ended up broadly similar to the rest of the UK, and families of those who lost loved ones are angry. She's deleted what they think could be vital evidence.
Well, they wrote the guidelines, and the guidelines are practically non-existent. Basically, they were marking their own homework.
We sat with Maggie today as she watched the former First Minister's performance in Hope for Answers. Her mum and her husband both died in the pandemic.
My faith in her is dented. My mum used to trust her, but my mother will be sitting up there in her cloud today entirely disappointed in the former First Minister because I don't believe she was entirely truthful today.
Nicola Sturgeon, have you lost the trust?
The image of Nicola Sturgeon is forever changed in Scotland. She left to jeers and a suspicion we may never know the full truth because of her decision to delete. Peter Smith, News at 10, Edinburgh.